I remember I was talking to my sisters and I was like, do you ever think that you had another life? And my one's like, no, I'm an atheist. This is it, that. And so she's fun. And then the other one was like, I don't know, maybe I'm open to all possibilities. And I was like, me too. And so that's I guess, you know, that's my segue.
That's your segue?
I thought you were gonna
Annyeonghaseyo! Welcome to Afternoona Delight, where Leah, Megan, and Amy, romance novelists, and your K-romance guides. So grab some dekboki and listen to your new favorite unnies.
Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hi there.
It's the sexy voices tonight. It's hot.
We're hot.
Yeah, both of you are like sweating.
You know,
Literally, I would like to think I'm dewy.
Right.
I'm just
You're
hot.
right, you have a dewy finish.
We have an excessive heat warning where I am, and it is 8 o'clock, dark outside, and it's still 89 degrees.
I want to see what the temperature is.
And
here.
humid as fuck.
That's pretty damn hot.
And tomorrow it's going to be 98. Sorry, no. Today it was 98. Tomorrow it's going to be 100. 100. Why?
Look, it's 83 here, and that's bad.
Well,
No.
speaking of weather, because I do want to talk about this. Well, I missed 2 weeks of podcasting because I was in London.
Dare you?
I know, and I really did miss you guys.
We missed you too.
I not only miss podcasting, but I miss talking to you on a more regular basis. But before I left, I messaged Sarah from Afternoona Asks, and I was like, it better be cold there, because London better bring me the rain and cold, because I am absolutely tired of this heat wave. And then we go to London, and it's a week of 80 degrees, and I'm like, why?
I did notice your pictures were very sunny. You're wearing shorts,
yeah. Where's the rain I was Where is the rainy gray weather that I was promised? But I did have a really fun time. Obviously, we did tons of stuff, but I want to talk about how I met Sarah from Afternoona Asks and Heather, one of our patrons. So we went to, Sarah set this all up, which was really awesome of her. She's like, let's meet for bingsu, and then let's go have Korean barbecue. And I was like, sounds great. So she gave me the address, and I went to, it's a southwestern London town, kind of, so out of London proper, I guess I would say. I don't know. Sarah's probably like, Megan, you don't know what you're talking about. So sorry, Sarah. But it was a town called, New Malden. And as soon as the Uber drivers driving us in, I was like, this is clearly a little K town. It was really, really cute. A lot of Korean restaurants and things like that. And Sarah then informed me that there's a Samsung factory nearby, and that is why. And I was like, I didn't even know that. So we went and we had bingsu, which obviously I've never had before, which is kind of like a shaved ice cream combo.
Is there red bean? Was there red bean in it?
So not this one.
Okay.
There was a red bean.
They're always eating it with red bean in K-dramas.
Right, and a woman right next to us is eating the red bean bingsu. But I had my daughter with me, my 10-year-old daughter Hazel, and we let her pick the flavor. So of course she picked Oreo. So we had Oreo bingsu, and then we they had a photo booth. It just felt so fun. I felt like I was in a K-drama, taking these photo booth pictures. And then we went to this Korean barbecue place, which again was in the same town. And first of all, the conversation with Heather and Sarah, I mean, I've talked to them both over Zoom, but I haven't met them in person. And it was I didn't feel like I was meeting them for the first time in any way. I was the conversation was just old friends getting together and chatting. I could have spent the night with them and still had more stuff to talk about the entire next day. It was just so comfortable and fun, and it was so nice of them to welcome me to London. But we had Korean barbecue, and Sarah ordered for us. So I got to have cold noodles, which I've never had before.
How was it?
So have either of you had cold noodles before?
No, I've been wanting to, though, because it's hot.
So yeah, it was a really interesting flavor. It was different, not what I was used to. I liked it. There was like a good amount of like the seaweed on top. So obviously like the seaweed obviously gives it that like kind of fishy taste. So it was like a cold fishy taste,
Yum.
which is like fine. It's just obviously not it's not like from my like Western like boring Pennsylvania palate. It was not kind of like a flavor I was used to. So I think like I just kind of had to get over the fact that it was like a cold fishy taste. And then I did like it. I mean, the noodles were great. It had overall had a good flavor. One thing that she ordered was blood sausage. And so
Did you try it? Because I've been wanting to try it.
Listen. So I thought blood sausage was like just sausage. Like that was, I don't know, blood heavy. I don't know, but I thought it was meat.
You thought
Like,
there
I
was like
thought
meat with like blood mixed in it?
Sort of. Maybe like blood pockets. I didn't know. I
Clots? Just clots?
Yeah.
Blood?
Like a blood bag from like Vampire Diaries. They just shove one of those in there.
Oh my god.
Blood bag. I definitely thought it was meat.
Okay.
And it wasn't.
No.
It's rice that's like soaked in blood.
Yes.
And then like wrapped in a casing.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, well, I had no idea that's what it was. And I love the flavor because it kind of has that like, it kind of has like a meaty, like that umami flavor, but it's rice. And it's like, and it's like easy to pick up and eat. And I actually like freaking loved it. Like I was like, okay, I can see how you would have like a blood sausage truck and like order that as like street food. I would totally do
We
that.
talked about this in one of the pods while you were gone when we did our banter pod. And yeah, like that's one of the things I'm like,
I didn't know
gunning
that's
for.
what it was either.
I had no idea. So,
I thought it was
it was
meat. I thought
like-
it was meat too. I didn't think there were pockets of blood in it.
I don't know what I thought. Okay, I really don't. I don't know what I thought. I'm just willing.
You
I
just
tried
picked it up
everything.
with your wet meat sticks and you ate it.
Yeah.
So my family, like, you know, we are like, you know, most of you, migrants in some way. Well, I mean, all of us in some ways. And so one of the like lineages of my family is German. And so blood sausage was a big part of their culture too. Like, you know, German culture has blood sausage. And my mom really like has like shied away in her adulthood and like in raising us with like the kind of stuff that she had when she was little that she doesn't like identify as delicious. So she did not like blood sausage, therefore I never got to try the German blood sausage she grew up on. Just like she won't eat game meat, which is really interesting to me because now game meat's like very trendy, like venison and elk. Like for her that was dead deer hanging like, you know, in the foyer of the home. But yeah, I'm all about, I really, really want to try it. I want to have Sunday soup, and I just want to go to like street carts and get little toothpicks and nibble
Yeah.
them.
It was really good. So my daughter tried it. I was actually, she tried everything, and actually it was really nice because Sarah and Heather were like, your daughter's being so good. She's trying everything. And she really did. She tried everything. She didn't like everything, but she tried everything.
You know what? That's all it is it's just trying things out.
Yep.
Yeah. And then we ordered rice wine because as soon as we walked in,
Makgeolli.
I saw, makgeolli, or I don't know if I could say it right, but some people were eating it out of like the little like
Bowls. Yeah, that's how you drink it.
Yeah, and so I was like, I clearly want to do that. And Sarah was so cute because every time I would like do something, she'd be like, let me take a video of you. Like she was like so good at like
Documenting.
proper like social media. And so Sarah didn't want anything, so just Heather and I were sharing. And at the very end, I had had a lot of rice wine. I was like full. I wasn't really paying attention. I just poured the rest of the rice wine into my bowl and didn't offer any to Heather. And I felt like such a jerk because I was like, I'm sorry because I just finished the rice wine and didn't even offer any to you. She's like, it's fine. But I felt like an
What's she
idiot.
gonna
I was
say?
like,
Good job, greedy.
yeah, she should have. She should have been like, thanks a lot, asshole.
Yeah, no, she's gonna be like, it's fine. Fuck you, Megan.
Okay, I have to teach like both of you about manners because
I
Leah
know.
for 2 weeks has
I
not
know.
been able to end the podcast with like a thank you and a goodbye. She's just like, annyeong, click.
I know.
And you are greedy with the wine.
Greedy with the rice wine. I know. She really
What
went
kind
home-
of co-host have I raised here?
She really went home to her family and she's like, well, that bitch drank all the wine. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so Heather was awesome. Sarah was awesome. They were just really, really fun to talk to.
I'm
and it
so
was just,
jealous. Like that. Your pictures made me so happy, but also so envious.
I felt like my cheeks hurt when I went home because I had been smiling so much, truly.
Yeah.
And I ate a lot, but I really, truly was like.
And you drank all the makgeolli.
And I drank all the rice wine.
Yeah.
I took an Uber home, no worries, even though I was in a foreign country with my daughter. No, I didn't drink that much, but yeah. Anyway, it was a great time. But I missed you guys, and I was obviously not able to like watch K-dramas because I would like pass out at the end of every day because we were so busy. So it did feel good to get home and kind of like get back into my K-drama watching schedule.
Well, we're happy to have you back.
Thank you. I missed you guys.
Missed you too.
And so I'm trying to think of like how are we gonna segue this one?
Yeah, what's the segue, man?
Because this was not your first time going to England.
It wasn't. It wasn't. But if I could maybe replay my first life, I would still choose to go to London. I don't know.
I mean, in not long now, like 6 weeks, I'll be going to Seoul for the first time.
I'm
That's
so
freaking nuts.
excited
I know,
for that.
so jealous,
Like, and
so
so
jealous and
jealous.
excited.
Seriously, both of you.
Yeah.
I'm just having a little anxiety, not for travel, but because it's so short that I just have like decided that I need to not sleep and only do
All the
crazy.
things.
Yeah.
Right.
Because I'm only there 6 days on the ground. It's so fast.
Right.
So, and yeah, I don't know. I can't segue it any better than that because it's my only life, first life, a life. Actually, here's the thing. I spent the weekend in Oregon visiting my sisters, and I haven't hung out with my sisters alone, especially with that. So 2 of us have spawned, 1 has not. But we have not hung out alone, just the 3 of us, without any other family member or any children or, you know, a brother or a parent or anything. We haven't done that. I don't even know. Ever, maybe, or in a very, very long time. And so we decided to do it. So we all met up in Bend. And, you know, we had a good time. We
Did some stuff.
Look, I am exploring psilocybin. I just want to put it out there. But we also did a float on the Deschutes River. And while we were on the float, which I really love to float, and I haven't floated in a very long time on a river. And so I was definitely like enjoying it, even though it was smoky. And I remember I was talking to my sisters, and I was like, do you ever think that you had another life? And my one's like, nah, I'm an atheist. This is it, that. And so she's fun. And then the other one was like, I don't know, maybe I'm open to all possibilities. And I was like, me too. And so that's I guess, you know, that's my segue.
That's your segue?
I thought you were gonna pull a Barbie and be like, have you ever thought about dying?
Oh, actually, okay. This is actually a funny story, then we will go to the next bit, which was I did think I was dying. And so there's a part of the river where you're going along. I mean, this is very mild. There are infants in like tubes. And you go up to this part that's the rapids. And my sister was fucking with me, and it was working. And so she kept being like, you know, we got to get over here for the rapids, and we got to move over here. And she was just totally messing with me. Like, we got to go around this buoy so we enter the rapids right. And then right before we get to it, she had this, like, I'm not going to spend much time because this is actually horrible, and I don't think it's anything to use for entertainment. But she was like, there's a section that is expert only. And there's, like, signs in the river that are like, don't go this way unless, like, you're going to, like, expertly navigate these rapids. That is not me in a fucking inner tube on mushrooms, let me tell you right now. So she's like, and someone died here last year in that wave. There's like a surf wave where you can like get on a surfboard and kind of do like a static wave or whatever. And she's like, someone died last year. And I was like, okay, well, that's not the news I want to know, nor do I want to go down that way. So I was very focused. Like, I need to go the other way that is not the way that I could potentially die. So I got hyper paranoid And she had a paddleboard and I was in like an inner tube. So I was like clinging to her paddleboard for dear life. But I ended up backwards. So I'm going down all these rapids backwards, just hanging on. In my panic, on the last rapid, I did knock her off. So she goes flying off her board. Her board goes flying. And it kind of like sets me going at a diagonal pattern where I crossed over into like, I started to get to, I was like wrapping around into the scary side. And I was like, oh no. And I'm like trying to paddle out with like my little T-Rex arms. Like, get out, get out, get out. I couldn't. So I aborted. I was like, fuck it, I'm out. And I just rolled out of the tube.
Good job.
And I like started like, so then I stood up and it was like to my thighs. My sister's like, get the inner tube, and it's like gone off into like this like freaking like river wave, and it's like spinning around, turning around, and then an actual child, like a little child who was probably like 8, who was over playing on that side, came over with it, and I was like,
and you're standing, like
you're standing
to my knee, maybe to my knees.
Oh my god.
And I was like, oh my god, I can't, I'm done. And so, yeah, I really felt like I went through like an almost death process. Oh and I was like, I will not choose that today. That is not the journey today. I'm going to jump out.
And fuck the tube.
Well, let me just tell you, I was full of metaphors the entire way. And then I did put a hole in the tube, and it was leaking. So then I had to get on my sister's paddleboard and ride it with her, and we had to just pull the sad little, like, deflated tube with us the rest of the way.
You had a tugboat.
But that being...
So you had to be that person to climb out of the rapids with a limp tube.
And let me just tell you, there were, because it was hot, there were probably, I mean, this was not like, I didn't grow up. I went to college in Montana, and we would float the river, and it was like, there were people around, but often you had like a big part of the Blackfoot River by yourself, and it was kind of wild. That was not what this was. There were hundreds of people. And so when I threw myself off, I was not alone. I was like in a crowd, basically like jumping on someone else. So, okay. So that all being said, I did talk about first lives, and that was my segue.
All right, yeah, sorry.
So I'm going to kick us off into this, and then we will see where this takes us. So we are talking today about because this is my first life. And the reason we're talking about that is because I have still not
watched
and may never watch See You in My 19th Life. So, sorry, but we're doing because this is my first life, because we have all watched that. Amy does her homework. So, Se-hee, who is played to perfection by My Liberation Notes Eamon Key, is a regimented single man in his 30s. He has chosen not to marry, is not close to his family, and really, really loves his cat. He owns his home but owes a lot on his mortgage. So enter broke Yoon Ji-ho. She's played by our Alchemy of Souls boo, Jung So-min, and she's a broke writer who doesn't have a room of her own, let alone a house. Not once her brother/roommate announces that he's getting married and starting a family.
Through a series of unfortunate or potentially fated events, Yoon Ji-ho begins to live at Se-hee's house. They agree to a marriage of convenience by signing a contract of 2 years wherein they agree to the terms and conditions of only being landlord and tenant, sharing their home based on common goals and values. Things do not go as planned when the housemates' pact of platonic cohabitation clashes with their personal trauma, social expectations, and familial interventions. The series also follows the lives of the friends of Se-hee and Ji-ho and their different perspectives on love and marriage.
Written by screenwriter Yoon Nang-joon, because this is my first life, released in 2017. Yoon hasn't written anything since, at least nothing credited on Asian Wiki. They had a few other earlier dramas. Hogu's Love in 2015, The Queen of the Office in 2013, and Cool Guys Hot Ramen in 2011, which, yeah, I
love
like,
that title.
That interests me. This drama has a controversial ending, which we will discuss in the spoiler section, but let's be clear, this is a romance, and it has an HEA, or happily ever after. There was also a bit of a scandal that this drama borrowed from a Japanese drama called We Got Married as a Job. The titles of these. The lead in that is an awkward guy who works in IT. There is a marriage of convenience and a quirky heroine. In the end, feels like a bit of a hoopla about nothing, as the stories seem quite different. So, first question. Have you ever written something that ended up being darn close to something else? What was it and what happened?
I asked this, I was just going to say I asked this because I was curious, like, when they hadn't written again, I'm like, oh, did, like, the scandal hurt that? Like, I was just curious.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, there's this saying that there is no original story. Like, something's always borrowed from something. And this literally just happened to me with my agent because I'm currently writing a story with what I call my Ted Lasso hero, my Ted Lasso inspired hero. So I purposely borrowed and had my hero be a college football coach who ends up coaching high school soccer. But it's not because he's a sought-after coach, but rather he gets in trouble with the media and is suspended for a year, and coaching soccer at his high school alma mater is his last resort. This idea has been brewing for years, but this book is later in my contract and won't be coming out until next year. So this is all just to say that literally the week that the movie Dream with Park Seo-joon dropped on Netflix, my agent saw the blurb about it and texted it to me. Like, she just texted me the blurb and said nothing else. I'm like, I know why she's texting this. If you don't know the Dream premise, Park Seo-joon is a soccer player who gets in trouble with the media and has to boost his image. So he is sent to coach Korea's team for the Homeless World Cup, and we did a podcast on that. I texted my agent back and told her, yes, I watched this movie the day that it dropped. The only similarities is that they both get in trouble with the media and have to boost their image, which is a huge sports trope to begin with. They don't do the same thing to get in trouble. The movie is not about a guy coaching a sport he doesn't know, and Dream has zero, we are talking zero, folks, romance. Where my book has a soccer player and fan heroine who teaches the hero the ropes. The end. So I'm still writing the book. I'm still doing the soccer.
Good.
So I'll just to say I'm not changing it because, like I said, there are no original ideas. Everybody's borrowing from somewhere.
Yeah, I'm heavily inspired by things I read and watch. So I'm always kind of taking, like little bits and pieces of things I watch and kind of reworking them into something new, which I think is what all writers do. So I don't think what I do is like unique or anything. I will say, like, if there was a big public controversy where something I wrote was like compared to something else, like I said, like publicly like that would be really hard. Really,
for sure.
hard.
So I don't want to get into like the weeds with this story, but I did have like an uncomfortable situation that both of you might remember. It was impactful for me personally, where I had a book that was set originally in Montana and eventually became the book called Last First Kiss. And when I turned it in, my agent or my editor was essentially like, you know what? I actually feel like we have a lot of Montana books. Like, can we set it somewhere else? And so I was like, okay. I'm like, oh, where else? And I'm like, well, what about Eastern California? Like, I just been on vacation there. It's ranchy. And I was like, how about I do like a fictional town in Eastern California? And she was like, great. So I did that, and they accepted the book. And I had a friend who had been writing for a different publisher, different books, different, like, I mean, and this is where, again, like, there's similarities and there's differences, right? Like, cowboys or Western books are Western books, right? But, like, I had somebody who was basically like, oh, I've set a book there, too, and I actually feel, like, upset you've set a book in this geographical region, too. And it was difficult because it was a friend, and I was kind of like, okay, look, I was like, look, I didn't steal it, and, like, my book is I write so differently from you, nor is our book, like, our books have nothing in common, except for, like, I set mine in a fictional town in this rough geographic area, but they felt very strongly about it. And I'm kind of a pussy. So I was like, look, I will go back and ask if I can change it to, I don't care. Like, I mean, I value friendships, and somebody was being upset, and I was like, I don't know what to do. So I was like, I will write them back and see if we can set it somewhere else. And so I wrote back and was like, can I move it to like Idaho? And they were like, actually, no. They're like, we decided this together. Like, we are fine with this. We want it here. And basically, like, get a pair and tell them no. And like, we're not going to, like, we don't approve these changes. We are like, we're going as is. So I came back and was like, everyone's feeling good about it. And I just, like, again, to reaffirm, these are very different. Our readership is going to be very different. Our stories are very different. Like, there's really not crossover. It ended our friendship, basically. And it was really not ideal for me. But at the same time, like, I have to, like, I knew I hadn't taken someone's idea, basically. And I knew how the circumstances had worked, and I tried to articulate them, and I was just really surprised. And so, yeah, I guess I'm going to leave it there. But it ended up being something where somebody else felt really like I had, like, kind of, like, encroached in their area. And again, to reaffirm, nothing about the plots were the same. It was just set in the same rough geographic, like, ranchy area of California. And that's where we are to this day.
It sucks.
Yeah, that sucks.
It
So
sucks.
for somebody, I may be a villain, and I have just had to make peace with that because I was like, I really didn't do anything wrong. But
that's so hard.
anyway, so that, like, when I was thinking about it, I was like, also, like, I could see how somebody, because when it happened, I was quite agitated, because even though I knew it wasn't like an accusation of plagiarism, I was still just like, this doesn't feel good, and it doesn't feel good when people think that you're, like, copying for some reason. And so I was wondering.
Right, it takes the fun out of it too. It takes almost the creativity out of it.
Yeah, and just,
you know?
like, but also writers are, we're just odd people sometimes, and so it was a good learning process. So, okay. What was your expectation going into the drama, and how did it match your reality?
So you both had already watched it and could not stop raving about it. So I had high hopes, but I also knew that it was a quiet drama, so I was a little scared. Because we know that I don't do well with quiet dramas. And the reality is that this drama has my whole heart, and I loved it, and I was very surprised by how hard it hit me.
Yeah, so Leah watched it first, and she said, it is a quiet drama, and it's a little bit more of like a character study. And I was like, but she's like, I really think you would like it. And she sold it to me properly. Like, she was like, it's this guy, the hero is kind of Nam Do-san-ish from, oh my God. Startup, thank you, from Startup. And, there's a cat. And I was like, okay, so, I'll give this a shot. And also, a lot of patrons had talked about this. Like, there was, like, buzz about this. So I'm like, all right, I'll give it a shot. And I just expected to like it. And then it really hit me in all the feels. I just thought the way the episodes were crafted was so smart. The dialogue was so good. The kind of, like, voiceovers they do, just, I felt, like, impacted, by, like, the storylines and the way it was written. Like, it crushes me that this writer hasn't written something else, because I thought it was fantastic. And it was like, and that's when I went to Amy, and I was like, okay, just you're good now. You because it's not just Leah who loves like the quieter dramas. It's me too, and you'll love it.
So we have had this drama recommended to us so many times, and I decided to jump on it finally because I loved the actor who plays the hero, Se-hee, Lee-min-ki. He was in My Liberation Notes, and he ended up becoming, like, one of my favorite parts of My Liberation Notes. And so I went in that way, and that's all I knew. I had no idea, even starting it, that Jung So-min was in it, who was my favorite part of Alchemy of Souls, basically. And so that was a happy surprise. The first episode was pretty slapstick for my taste, but I was like, whatever, I'm having fun, let's go for it. And then, look, I just realized how much I haven't had a marriage of convenience trope, and I loved it. Like, I haven't seen a good marriage of convenience trope, and it has been a long time. I have a comp, actually, for one, and that's about how long it's been since I've watched one.
I couldn't even think of one when you asked for comps of a marriage of convenience comp.
So Amy,
Me.
what draws Amy, what draws audiences to the marriage of convenience trope in storytelling, and why is it an enduring theme in literature and media?
Well, hopefully me speaking to why I think it is will appeal to other people, but this is, I think, why it appeals to me. And I think this trope hits me the same way that a fake relationship trope does. Like when two people enter into this sort of contract, and it literally is a contract in this drama, there's no pretense of who they are, at least in the beginning, right? They aren't trying to showcase only the best versions of themselves because they think it doesn't matter, that they have like no motivation to impress the other person because their relationship isn't real. But in doing so, they unwittingly let their guard down. And when they do fall for each other, they fall for the genuine person, like loud snores and all.
Aww, I forgot about the snoring. You're right, I loved it. As someone who snores, I appreciated it.
Yeah, I'm a big snorer.
I'm not.
It comes and goes. But yeah. Okay, so Megan, how does the concept of pretending to be in a relationship challenge or play around with the traditional notions of love?
For me, the trope kind of takes away like any sort of power imbalance and puts the characters on a level playing field because, I mean, typically they're a team, so it's convenient for both of them. And yeah, one isn't kind of holding power over the other. They're a team, they're equal, and then in that they find common ground, they start to fall in love, and I always love, like, obviously that turning point where they start seeing each other as, like, more than just sort of like a, quote, teammate, because that's how I look at marriage of conveniences. And Leah, how does the setting or cultural context impact the way the marriage of convenience trope is portrayed? Are there cultural variations in how this trope is used?
So yeah, I mean, I think always in a contemporary romance, like that marriage of convenience trope is going to be influenced by the cultural nuances and societal expectations of a specific setting. In terms of because this is my first life, I feel like they're layering it over the context of contemporary South Korean society and really exploring those like struggles and pressures that are faced by young adults in terms of having a house and like navigating a career and relationships. So when they're entering their contract marriage, it's to solve a very practical and very real problem, which is like respective housing and financial problems, which I think is something that could be faced by many other folks, not only in South Korea's kind of like competitive and expensive urban environment, but also folks living kind of anywhere where the cost of living is really high in terms of what you would expect to be making in your house or, you know, what you're trying to do in terms of setting yourself up for social advancement.
So this drama has a lot of tropes. What is one trope you can find in the plot and what makes it such universal fantasy butter?
So what I really loved about this drama, and we'll talk more about it as we get into the spoiler section, is that even though we had our main leads with Ji-ho and Se-hee, we had an excellent like ensemble cast here, and I loved the other couples. And so one of my favorites was the grumpy sunshine sort of trope with Suji and Sang-gu, who are Se-hee's best friend and Ji-ho's best friend. And I love that it's a bit of a reversal with the female being the grumpy and the male being the sunshine. And this trope is always butter because you know there's something behind the grumpiness that only the sunshine can bring out. And the journey of finding out what that is always reels me in emotionally because it's usually a secret or a trauma that makes you see the grumpy in a very different light. And then by the end, at least in this drama, we get to see like the grumpy morph into the bright ray of sunshine. And that's so fun to see.
Oh, we did. So for me, it's forced proximity. So forced proximity might be my favorite like trope of all time. And I would say marriage of convenience is kind of like forced proximity, like on steroids a little bit. I just love the idea that these like two strangers have to be forced together and like get along. It's why like I love like a good like put a couple together in a snowstorm that especially if they're enemies, and make them have to be with each other nonstop. And because to me, like the kind of like the everyday things about each other is what's romantic. Like, does she snore? How does she take her eggs? What beer does he drink? Does he like, do they sit on the floor or the couch to watch TV? What do they watch? Like, I love those like little things. And so to put that into the marriage of convenience where they're like, and also too, like they're forced to like play at intimacy, which I absolutely love. Cause like, okay, so like when do they choose to hold hands? And then the amazing, like very cliche scene of, they have to hold hands for show purposes, but then they like don't unlatch hands, and all of a sudden then they realize they're still holding hands, and they have to like yank their hands back and be like, ooh, I don't know, my hand's sweaty, like that whole thing it makes me so giddy.
Yeah, absolutely. And then for me, I just threw in opposites attract, and you talked about the second lead, so I'll just talk about the main leads quickly. Ji-ho and Se-hee have very contrasting personality and outlooks on life. And we have Ji-ho as like, she is the writer and is expressive and emotional, where Se-hee, as our IT guy, is reserved and logical. So think about it kind of like Megan and Neil.
Yeah. Basically.
And so, yeah, as a result, they've got those like differences that create tension and then opportunities for personal growth. And I'm always going to like all these tropes, like and when you put together like a grumpy sunshine, and honestly, the leads kind of echo that. Oh, for
sure. 100%. Yeah.
And then the forced proximity and the opposites attract. I mean, yes, all the way. Butter, yeah. Universal fantasy, butter, gold.
So, Leah, what would you say is a comp to this drama? Because you found a marriage of convenience comp.
So, yeah, I did. I went back to the last time I felt like I watched something, and I don't know if I'd say it was like marriage of necessity to some degree, but kind of convenience, which was Fated to Love You, which is a drama neither of you have seen, and I truly love it. And I wouldn't even say this is a quiet drama. It's a little campy. But it is about like the couple who in episode 1, through a series of unfortunate events, accidentally sleep with each other, thinking they are each another person, and get pregnant and then get married. And that was the last time I felt like I'd watched. And I mean, so yeah, it's a little bit different than this. This is like a true marriage of convenience contract. And the other one, they had sex once. It was just the accident, and then had to get married because of the baby and reasons for that. I still think Fated to Love You it's a fun drama. And if anyone ever gets the yen to watch it, I would love to pod about it.
I know you've talked about it a lot, and every time you do, I'm like, oh yeah, I want to watch that. But
yeah, it's good. It's got the heroine from the Go Back Couple.
Oh, I love that drama.
All right, Amy, how about you?
So I didn't have a comp for Marriage of Convenience, but like for a quieter drama with an ensemble cast, I went to Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, which is another one that I love. I think that because this is my first life is a lot quieter than Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha, but Hometown Cha-Cha-Cha at least is there's not like a murder going on along with it, anything like that. Like, it is mostly like the conflict comes from the hero's trauma, which takes a long time to learn about that. But yeah, it was a great ensemble, like more than one, romance going on. And I love that. I love when you get just as into the side characters as you do the main leads.
I had a hard time thinking of a comp for this, and I think it's because I don't tend to watch like the quieter dramas, and everything I thought about seemed either too slapsticky or too like traumatic. Like, there's no real trauma. Well,
there's a little bit of trauma. Yeah.
There's a little bit of trauma, that's true, but it's no like
it's no Rain.
Yeah, it's no Rain. So I don't know. I just had a really hard time with the comp. I think your comps are good.
All right, well, now it's...
I wonder...
Oh, go ahead.
Well, actually, question. Is it anything like Be Melodramatic?
I mean, I'd say loosely... You haven't seen that either, have you?
No.
So, yes, in terms of there being, like, the three good friends.
Right.
They don't all live together, which is kind of, like, part of the premise of Be Melodramatic to some degree. But, yeah, I would say it's in the same vein as that, which is another drama that, oh, my gosh. It's very... I love it. I mean... None of these are perfect dramas, let me say. Like, I mean, but it's rare for a drama to be perfect. But when I think of, like, things that have stuck out in my memory as being, like, even if in the end there's elements of Because This Is My First Life that weren't absolutely perfect or Be Melodramatic that weren't perfect, I still am always going to think back and be like, I really enjoyed that drama.
Yeah. I mean, just to say about Because This Is My First Life is you get 3 couples. It's like 3 times the happiness. Like... I love that, you know? I love, you know, I realized that at first, at the very, very beginning, the plot really focuses on the main leads, but as the drama goes on, you get a lot of, like, the 2 secondary couples, and all of them are unique and fantastic and have different
You get even just, like, the friendship between the 3 women. Like, there's a whole like 20 minutes of an episode dedicated just to how they became friends, and I love that.
Yeah. I mean, I would almost like to do the Bechdel test on this drama, because they have a lot of conversations that have nothing to do with men.
Mm-hmm. But one thing that's a funny little, like, Easter egg that has really nothing to do with anything, but I'm just going to throw it out there before we get into the little K-pop part, is... Do you remember where where the leads? Where else have you seen those leads? Those exact leads?
Where have I seen, like, Se-hee and Ji-ho before?
Yeah, or the actors playing them as a couple.
I don't know.
What's wrong with Secretary Kim? They're the flashback parents.
Stop it.
Stop it. How did you find that out?
I looked it up. I don't know.
How did I not learn that? That's the kind of stuff that I figure out.
That is a ticker tape Amy thing to say.
Yeah, I know. I felt very Amy.
And here I thought
That is...
So that was like the beach scenes with them.
I thought I had never seen Lee Min-ki in anything.
Yeah, no. What's wrong with Secretary Kim?
Oh my god, that's so cool. That's so cool. I love it.
That's awesome.
Thank you for that tidbit.
I like Easter eggs.
So, pivoting over to our favorite part of every episode, it is time for our K-pop rec of the week. And Megan, what do you have for us this week?
So I am going to recommend the debut girl group, Kiss of Life. So it is 4 female singers, and their debut song is just shh, like shush up. It's very fun, very catchy. I love that there's a Korean American, there is a woman from Thailand, so it's like a little bit of a different group, and I've seen some interviews with them, and they're really personable. And the one singer, her name is Belle, she does these like whistle notes in this song, like Mariah Carey whistle notes. It's crazy. It's straight up crazy that she can sing like this. So it's just a lot of fun. I love them, and I really wish the best for these girls. I can't wait to see what they come out with next. So yeah, it is Shh by Kiss of Life.
I like hearing you say shh as a song title twice.
I know. I'm like, I don't know another way to say it. Like, I was like, how should I say it? But it's literally shh.
There should be no guilt or embarrassment about embracing the things that bring you joy, which is why the podcasts in the Studio Afterglow Network are tailor-made for you. Discover Afternoona Delight, where 3 American writers examine Korean dramas through a writer's lens. Join Afternoona Army, a space for BTS fans over 30, looking for thought-provoking discussions and thirst-inducing content. Delve into the world of fruit with It's Bananas, where the fruit maven shares how tasting new and diverse fruits led her to self-discovery, joy, and connection. For Asian drama enthusiasts seeking answers, we bring you Afternoona Asks, where British Chinese and Korean American hosts dive into all your Asian drama questions, including special episodes under Afternoona Asks ND, where neurodivergent straight talk and representation are prioritized, breaking down ableist perceptions. Studio Afterglow is just beginning, and we promise to keep delivering content that warms your heart and tickles your ears. Embrace your passions, find joy, and let us be your source of unabashed delight. All right, so let's flip over. We're in the spoiler section now, but I wanted to get into some of the Patreon hot takes because this was talked about a lot in the Patreon, and a lot of folks had wanted us to see it. So, if everyone wants to pull up some of the feedbacks, we can kind of talk through what some of the people, there's questions and comments. There's a lot of questions about the end. So and our thoughts on the end, and we're going to get to that in a little while. So I think let's give that a break.
Wait, can I just read this one comment? She said, how many coats do these people own? And I do have to talk, because the heroine had one suitcase that she dragged everywhere. One suitcase, but she had probably 5
She had so
fluffy
many coats.
I am like, she had so many coats. Where are you putting those coats, girl? Where are you putting those coats? About 2 coats would fit in that suitcase and nothing else.
But I mean, that is the K-drama wardrobe. There's a coat for every occasion.
I was like, she has a lot of freaking coats.
Okay, so here's one that was a question that also has an answer. And so I'm going to do this one. So one of our Patreon members, Jamie, wrote, I sent a question to Afternoona Asks. So shout out to one of our sister pods in our network about Because This Is My First Life. And the host, Grace, was kind enough to answer my question. In the show, the female lead and male lead end up as roommates because they hadn't met in person and multiple people misgendered their names. So I was wondering if their names were androgynous, kind of like a Pat or Jamie in, English, or if there was something else at work. Grace wrote, quote, each of the characters actually has misleading names. Ji-ho is more of a masculine name, and Se-hee is more of a feminine name. And then apparently Grace attached some screenshots that were visuals of data because she's amazing. Oh my God,
Grace even provided data? That's awesome.
As you can see, a great majority of people named Ji-ho in Korea are men, and even greater majority of the people named Se-hee in Korea are women.
Well, did you notice that her boss, like the senior writer, was named Se-hee also? Like before she quit her writing job, her boss's name was also Se-hee.
I did not notice that. That's interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Grace, because that makes sense then.
Let's see what else.
This is a good one. It was very open about sex-related stuff, which I agree with. I actually thought that was really nice. I think the women had really refreshing conversations, realistic conversations about sex, which was nice. And yeah, I do think it felt a little bit more forward in that way.
So there were some people who were asking about The Graduate. And there were some links because at the end they're on the bus, and I guess there's a poster of The Graduate in in the apartment or on her door.
I did notice that.
I didn't. Oh my gosh.
I did. And I was like, huh, of all things.
Yeah, and so I was trying to, so I haven't watched The Graduate in a really long time, but I think that there's that idea of there's some callback at work here, and I was looking to try to see if I could just pull it out without rewatching The Graduate, but really it's just, I think at the end of episode 4, we see the leads on the back of the bus in their wedding attire. And so that is a nod to the female lead being a writer, the same, the poster, the movie. I don't know if there's something super deep in terms of there's no Mrs. Robinson or anything like that, but I think there's just a little bit of a sweet catch is what my guess is. I don't think there's something deeply plot connected.
Yeah. So someone else said, is her suitcase a TARDIS? How does she fit all her things in there? See? I'm not the only one. Dragging that one tiny carry-on size suitcase everywhere. Sorry, I'm pointing out the things that are...
I think it might be pronounced TARDIS. I'm just saying because I've watched some Doctor Who. So.
Yeah, I was like, I'm not sure if I'm saying that right.
So again, I think a lot of this is about the ending, but somebody else wrote, my favorite scene was actually the wedding. I really love this. That's why I'm reading it. Where Se-hee finds Ji-ho sitting on the floor crying. He reads the letter from Ji-ho's mother written to him that trigger the tears. In the moment, you don't know how he'll respond, but in true K-drama romance fashion, he takes his sweet time. And when he does, he plays every romance note with perfect pitch, and asking Ji-ho if she needs to cry some more, and then tells her they'll go together and I'll stay by your side. And that is the moment where their hearts truly meet and their story begins.
I absolutely love that scene. It was one of my favorite scenes of the entire drama. It meant so much. I mean, I don't know. I don't really have a question that addressed this, so I'll just say Kim Sung-young, we did a whole podcast on, was a scene stealer for me. And because this is my first life. And actually watching this was the reason that I was like, guys, we got to have a whole thing on Kim Sung-young. And you two were both like, yes, absolutely. She played this mother so well. There were just so many details about this mother-daughter relationship that just felt so real to me. And the mother-daughter scenes are the ones that made me cry the hardest. I mean, I cried pretty hard at those scenes. I just and it all links back to the romance too. So it's just Kim Sung-young. This performance of yours just was amazing.
Yeah, it was so good. So I will say that most of the people, one person thought that her wardrobe was from the Holly Hobby fashion line.
I saw
it was very Laura Ingalls. It
was a lot.
Loved it.
I didn't dislike it, but it was interesting.
Yeah, I thought it was cute. So
people have really strong feelings about the ending, huh?
Yeah, a lot of feelings. So I think let's just wait for that to get to the end. But here's one thing I did want to just call this one out, which was one person was like, not gonna lie, 100% watch this for Jung So-min. I cannot be alone in not liking the male lead for the first half. My God, I just wanted to slap him so much. Then he completely changed. I think it was when he came to rescue her and you got to see him behind the mask. So curious, because for me, that and we're going to talk about towards the end too, some folks have especially folks who are neurodivergent have felt like Se-hee was autistic.
That was my first thought.
That was my first thought.
I like a hero that has kind of a bit of a flat presentation sometimes. And so that for me was I didn't have a problem with it because that kind of neurodivergent or just a flatter type of presentation to me hits in a romance trope universal fantasy space of that button down hero that's kind of not going to offer a lot emotionally, kind of paired with more of a emotional feisty woman. I mean that's kind of an evergreen romance trope that I'm never gonna probably be sick of.
Yeah, well, I also think there's a fantasy element of that, if you want to call it the butter. Of he's only going to warm up to you. Mm-hmm. So you are going to be special because the only person who can break through that flat mask is the woman he loves or whatever. I did think it was funny because you messaged me and you're like, is Neil like this?
Yeah.
And I was like, honestly, he can be. I would say this is an exaggerated version. Se-hee was an exaggerated version of Neil, but do you remember they had that
employee
board and it was they had to answer what they like and what they dislike.
Yeah. He's like,
and
dislike.
I like my cats and my house, which that's what Neil would say. And his dislikes are things like this. And that is exactly what Neil would say. He does not like any sort of that team building.
He doesn't want to do a warm check-in icebreaker.
Absolutely not. His one company used to have this talent show once a year, and everyone was supposed to sign on and watch it, and Neil loathed it because he's just this is just because I was aren't you going to participate? And And he's like, absolutely not. So, he can be very flat to other people. But I would say now that he's older too, he's much better. I would say, I think I told you, I said, Se-hee to me would be Neil if I never met him. Maybe I just think I hold more power
like
than
you,
I do.
You and the kids helped, like, crack that egg.
But I mean, was he hard to warm up to? Yes, but that's what made that's what kept me watching, because I'm waiting for him to break.
Yeah.
Like, I'm waiting for that moment for him, for that mask to fall off.
And the other thing too is, like, sometimes we do have, like, for me, I loved him in my liberation notes, like, loved him. And so I was already willing to forgive basically anything in this, because I'm like, I love you already, even though you're a different character. I am, like, already warmed up to you. So I think that read kind of, like, helped shape my perspective too.
He also has such a masculine face in a way that, sometimes in these dramas we get kind of like, pretty boy, like, idol looking male leads. And so I did like the, like, very masculine, like, square jaw.
He's a good looking man.
Yeah, I mean, model.
But Ji-ho, I mean, look, I
do too. I was so excited.
I was
so excited to get to see her again, because I missed her.
Me too. And honestly, I wanted to be in that friend group.
They were amazing. I loved them. And I loved, like, they all had 3 completely different personalities. And I just loved what they brought out in each other. And they were so fun.
I also liked that they fought.
Yeah.
Like, they had a fight. Mm-hmm. And I was like, and it was a fight that felt real. Mm-hmm. It like, there were hurt feelings. Neither wanted to kind of, like, be the one to have to say sorry, because they felt the other feelings were hurt, and they both felt wronged, and just everything about it. This drama just felt so real in a way that I felt like I could have known any of these.
Who has a pen in their hand right now?
Me. Sorry.
It's been clicking this whole time.
So in terms of talking about what was real and relatable, something that I did want to talk about just a little bit was the role of Ji-ho's parents in her life and their influence on her decisions regarding love and marriage. And so, look, I know we all come from different backgrounds and different, families of origin. But, like, what did you feel like you saw that was relatable in terms of your own, or more specifically, like, your parents' marriage or marriages?
So what really hit me, we're in the spoiler section now, right? I can say that everyone. So what really hit me was the conversation that Ji-ho had with her mom when she said that she was going to get divorced. They were at the hospital after her brother just had the baby. And they had, like, some quiet time to talk, just mom and daughter. And so what really kind of hit me was when Ji-ho's mom, again, played by the inimitable Kim Sun-young, talks about star pockets.
Stop.
I know.
Well, this conversation
I know
broke me
this.
open.
Okay. So Ji-ho brings up this memory she has of when she was 10 and her mom left her dad, like, physically left, like, took the kids and went to stay with her parents. And she's like, why didn't you divorce dad then? And her mom talks about how she thought about leaving him, but then remembered their dating years and how passionately, like, over the moon for each other they were. And she knew that if she left him, she'd always long for him, because she would always remember those little moments of the relationship, which she called star pockets, when things were bright and beautiful and they were so in love. And she explains that to her, that that's what marriage is, collecting the star pockets and hanging on to them when things seem to dim. And I loved this, and being someone who is divorced, who is a child of divorce, like, that is the kind of thing that I long for, and that's the kind of thing that I want to see in a relationship that has longevity, is that it's not always going to be like it is when you first get together, but if you can hold on to those little moments, oh God, I fucking loved it. And it was such this beautiful conversation, but then it ended with some levity, which I loved as well, because she's like, well, Ji-ho was like, well, what should I tell dad about getting divorced? And her mom's like, nothing. Like, don't even tell him. Like, you're on your own. It was really cute. Yeah. But just, I mean, that, like, you know, this tiny little scene, and that is probably one of the biggest standout scenes for me in the entire drama.
Yeah, and again, it's between Ji-ho and her mom, because Kim Sung-young is a goddess.
True.
Yeah, so I would say, like, when I was in high school, I kind of had, like, a traumatic relationship, and so his reaction to every time we would have a disagreement is, okay, we're going to break up. We need a break. And so I kind of took that with me into, like, future relationships where I was like, oh, a fight means, like, you just break up. Even though my parents are still together, and I've seen them work through things. I think I was like, I don't know. I think, well, I was a teenager and I was working through things. And then I met Neil. And I remember we'd have these disagreements, and I'd, like, either make a joke about breaking up, or I'd be like, well, maybe, you know, we should take a break. And he, like, I'm kind of impressed now, like, 18, he kind of, like, looked at me at one point and was like, you can't, like, you need to take breaking up off the table, like, kind of. Like, you need to, like, that can't be the immediate response. We have to actually have a fight and then have a resolution. Like, there has to be a full circle moment. We can't just, like, have a fight, break up. Mm-hmm. And I was like, huh, this is a novel idea.
Aww.
And to this day, it's like, ever since then, we never did break up, because it was like, then we were like, okay, so we have this argument, and then we're going to, like, work through it and, like, come to some sort of solution or some sort of, like, compromise. Mm-hmm. And we still do it, and we fight sometimes, or obviously we fight, all couples do, and we fight in front of the kids because we make up in front of the kids. And so I don't know, I hope that they don't fall into, like, bad relationships in high school that, like, give them trauma. But I hope they see that, you know, we come to solutions.
Yeah, you can't never fight, right? If you never fight, then then basically you're with somebody who doesn't care, or you don't care. Like, you have to fight, right, but, like, exactly. You have to stick around for the resolution. Yeah.
Yeah. I think I just, like, was like, oh, I had, like, trauma from this relationship, and I was like, you know, I you know, and eventually he'd be like, it also hurts my feelings that you keep, like, just trying to, like, break up every time. And I was like, I'm sorry. I was like 18. Mm-hmm. Come on, you know, but
babies.
Yeah.
So I was thinking about this. I actually decided to change what I'm going to talk about. So I'm going to go into the way, way back. And I'm actually not going to talk about my parents or myself, even though this was my question.
I know, right?
So I'm going to talk about my great-grandfather. And here's why. Because I was thinking about, like, the discussion of, like, the patriarchy in the home. And again, like, just like that, like, echo to the fact that, like, patriarchy shows up in many different cultures, all cultures, basically. And so the lens I'm going to go through is my Italian, and I mean, like, full Italian, born in Italy, great-grandfather. And by the time I met him, my great-grandmother was dead. He was old. I'm the oldest grandchild on the Italian side. And so, you know, we had probably 12 years together. But he was, you know, he was very old, and I thought he was, like, you know, ancient. But he had this thing where he would come to visit us in the summer. He would drink some red wine and whiskey, and then he would recite this poem called The Face on the Barroom Floor. And then he would break into hysterical, very emotional tears. This old Italian man in his chair. And it would be because it reminded him of his wife. And I would think, that's really sad. He must have really loved her. Like, what a sad little, like, you know, thing this is we do every summer. And then I got a little older, and my grandpa, who also was very, 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 well, 100% Italian, incredibly patriarchal, he let it slip to me when I was older and talking to him that my great-grandfather was actually not very nice to my great-grandma. Like, very much probably like the dad in the drama that, you know, we were seeing. And so he would yell at her. He would, you know, put her down. He didn't, you know, the man of the house. He was the man of the house, My grandpa, even though he was casting judgment on his father, very much in the same vein. And I just found it interesting to be like, and then the woman passes away, and you're going to, like, idolize and do this poem and this whole thing of, like, whatever. And so it's always struck me And sometimes when I have fights with my husband, I'm like, I will not be the person you cry about, later when, like, I had to deal with all this shit. And then I'm like, you're a queen in the afterlife. It does me no good to be the queen in the afterlife. But anyway, that's what I was thinking about. Because I was like, this dad would totally do that. Be like a total dick.
Oh, my God.
And then at the end, be like this, like, oh, like I've loved and lost. And meanwhile, the mom was like, fuck you from the grave.
Meanwhile, Neil's great-grandfather said to his wife, who had kids at home, I'm going to go get a pack of cigarettes. And she said, okay. And he never came back.
Ugh.
And he started a whole new life.
Ugh.
Oh, my God.
Ugh. How can you even marry? Somebody was like, oh, like, tell me about yourself. Well, whatever. So I got this older
wife
family,
and kids never even divorced her, like, fucking crazy.
I would be like, yes, you definitely let me go for you.
Oh, God, families are so weird.
Totally. I have a great-grandfather, we're in segue territory, but just to wrap it up quickly, who I had grown up being told he was kicked in the head by a horse and died. I did family history, found out that he was a bigamist, and he was Canadian, had a wife he never divorced in Canada, married my great-grandma while he was still married, got her pregnant, she divorced him for cruelty, and then he died of syphilitic madness.
Oh, good God.
Wow. That is a wild ride.
And I was like, wild and definitely not kicked in the head by a horse. But thank you, Ancestry.com.
Yeah.
Who should sponsor our podcast. Okay.
Yeah.
So, that being said, how do one of you want to talk at all about the symbolism of the characters' personal spaces in the drama and how they reflect their personalities and desires?
Sure, I would love to.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome. So, yeah, I know I love questions like this, so I went to town on it. So, yeah.
Yeah, and you wrote, like, a proper, like, thesis. It's lovely. I read this and I was like, of course, this is so Amy. And it's good.
I was like, what else do we have to say?
Sorry.
Yeah. I was like, why
you
there's
didn't
nothing else
say
to
take
say?
one, so I went, yeah.
No.
It was
It's
perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
perfect. Yeah.
So here's what I wrote. Se-hee's space is neat and tidy, everything in its place, which is how he liked his life. He thought if he could keep everything in a neat little box, that he'd never get hurt, and that he would never hurt anyone he loved again. Ji-ho had very little, except for apparently a lot of coats.
A lot of coats.
She had very little, but she didn't need a lot to be happy, just to find her own star pockets, both personally and career-wise. And that was all she really needed. So I thought that was really cool that, like, she fit in a room, right? Her whole life fit in a room.
Yeah.
Suji's personal space wasn't revealed until closer to the end because she didn't let Sang-gu see it, or all of her, until she was ready to open up. And it was kind of chaotic, which I liked because she was very put together. That's what we got to see. But, like, when then you get into her apartment and there's, like, shit everywhere, and that's fine. Like, she was a busy person and she had a chaotic life. And then Horang and Won-suk's rooftop apartment was complete chaos. As were they.
Yeah, it was.
And it all kind of ties into the Room 19 symbolism, which somebody had asked about in the Patreon, and then I looked it up, and it's actually not a very happy story. Like, it's a Doris Lessing short story, and the woman in Room 19 ends up taking her own life. Because I looked up, like, what was more of the story about. But just this idea that all of them had this, like, secret compartment, right, of their identity. And they didn't let people into that room until they could trust that they could show that part of them. And that was something that held true for all of them. So even though the actual story itself, it's called To Room 19, which is actually a book of short stories by Doris Lessing, the actual To Room 19 story is about trying to find something that is just yours, an identity that is just yours. And especially when you are a wife and a mother and, you're living in a chaotic house, and this is coming from the story, that to be able to find something that is just yours could be something as simple as, I just have this room and this is where I go and I do nothing in it because I just get to be. And all of them had these little compartments where they just got to be them until they were ready to mesh that with somebody else.
Yeah, I loved it.
And so just, and talking a little bit more about Room 19, like what it was like...
Put the pen down. Who's got the pen?
I have a slap.
Oh my God. What is the matter with you guys? You think nobody's going to hear a fucking slap bracelet? I'm like going to come to both of your houses and staple your hands to your desks while you're podcasting.
I like a fidget. Okay?
Fidgeting is great when you're on mute.
Yeah, I get it. So essentially what I was trying to get at with the Room 19, because I found this to be impactful because I myself have a Room 19, although it's not secret. So I have an apartment on campus that I very much value at the moment, and it is my space to go to. But I thought it was really interesting that, like, you know, the main character of this book, Susan Rawlings, she goes to Room 19 because when she's there, she can just, like, shed all her ego and just kind of, like, be who she is really. And she's, like, the imposter or the fake when she goes home. And eventually her husband starts to be like, where is she going? And then, like, figures out what it is and that she's going somewhere. And he assumes she's having an affair, because he's a dude and, you know, is less imaginative. Sorry, dudes. And she ends up just saying yes, because it's easier to be like, yeah, I'm having this torrid affair, than be like, I just want to go somewhere and feel like myself. And then when she finds out that, like, then he's like, well, I'm having an affair too. And then she realizes, like, you know, basically, like, what are we? Like, what is this world that we live in? And that's when she, you know, does that, you know, ends her life and completes a suicide, which is a bummer. But I was thinking about just, like, how much we all need to have. I mean, my Room 19 is very important to me, and internally and physically as a space.
I feel like this is kind of my Room 19.
I was just going to say that. I was like, the podcast is kind of my Room 19. And yeah, it's not secret, but it's where I feel like I can just, like, say the things that are on my mind. Because I would say, like, lying in bed watching K-dramas, that's also my Room 19. So, like, that, and then expressing how I feel about what I just watched, that's, like, my absolute happy place.
All right, so 2 more questions before we wrap up today, both important. One is, did the second leads in this drama ever take over as being your favorite?
Okay, yeah. Ho-rang and Won-suk. This, like, chaotic rooftop couple, I swear to God, Won-suk was just, oh my God. He did that thing where he kind of played pitiful well, in a way, but then I also love...
It's because he's always pouting with those beautiful lips. Like, he can't unpout.
Oh, beautiful lips. Beautiful. I know. To me, I felt their history. Like, I don't know how does a couple do that? Where, like, they come on the screen and I was like, yes, they've been together for like 8 years. Like, I can feel the history between them, and I could feel so much weight to their conversations that was in, like, a stark contrast to Ji-ho and Se-hee, which, like, how? I don't know how that's so accomplished, but it was. And their, like their breakups, their fights, they kind of had a few. I cried so hard. I mean, I was, like, sobbing, whimpering.
The one when they were at the play, I lost it. The play, lost it. Absolutely lost it. There's something about a realness of a conversation where they both realize they want different paths. And I guess that, you know, there's no misunderstanding that for them, you know, in that like penultimate breakup scene, there's no misunderstanding. They know each other and they know what each other wants, but it's not the same. And that was so heartbreaking.
So hard to watch because it also was just very real. Like, I think not everyone just has this, like, massive fight and then they break up. Like, a lot of times it's something that's, like, slow building like that. So when they did get back together, oh my God. I think I would have died.
Some people are mad that they did. Some people are mad that they got back together.
So I have to say, I'm not mad, but I expected it to be a real breakup, and I wasn't. I was sad about it, but I was also like, that makes sense. And I wasn't upset that they got back together, but I would have been okay with them being.
I'm glad they weren't. Like, some people think that they should have found other people, but I think for me, when they were exploring very lightly other people, I think is when they realized that they have the star pockets with each other, and they have like they have the times where it's not all bright and shiny, but you know, when she was taking all the pictures off the bulletin board when she was packing up and moving out, I'm like, that's all of their good times, right? Like, they need to remember.
Right. And I think Won Suk had to realize that too, because he was like, I can't move forward because we're going to be miserable.
Right.
If we move forward, we're going to be miserable. And I think he had to come to the realization that, like, and this is where there is a little bit of like the fantasy space that I loved, is that he came to a conclusion like, oh, essentially we have enough star pockets, love between us like is enough, and we can we won't be miserable. And so at the end, when they were like married with a baby, I just oh my God,
yeah,
the best.
It made me
best.
super
I
happy.
love them so much. I like.
So don't come at me if you're a
right
Ho-rong
away
and Won-suk couple hater. Don't come at me because I love them.
Don't talk to me. You can
Yes.
message Leah about it. Do not message me because I will cut you off.
So I just find it to be interesting because, look, I liked them. But I was also like, oh, when they broke, and like when they got back together, I will say out of the three, they were my least fave. So I found it very interesting because to me, Sungwoo and Suji were the MVP couple.
I loved
of the
them
whole
too.
drama.
I didn't love them any more or less.
No,
love
I
them,
was
but
more invested in them, honestly, than anything else by the end.
See, we're going to get to this, but I think there was a part Ho-rong and Won-suk kind of took over for me, and maybe that's why the ending for you know, the quote main leads didn't make me so angry.
Same.
Because I was like so invested.
I think that's a great explanation.
I guess I didn't feel like the whole drama was hinging on just that one couple. To me, that was just another story in the drama, and I was still getting fed from like these other and I knew they were gonna. Well, I guess we can get to that.
Yeah.
But.
So I just wanted to say, Sungwoo to me by the end, look, Se-hee. I mean, like yeah, and you know,
no, but
Sungwoo is. I mean, cinnamon roll, marshmallow. Dreamboat.
If I had to pick like an ideal type of personality, like if I could be like, what in my like at my age now, as I think about like what feels evolved and good. I mean, this is a fantasy man, but I am into it. And
right,
so,
don't you just want like a happy feminist who like
standing in the Wonder Bra store as you pick up samples, like.
Yeah, but also is like competent and good at what he does, and also doesn't need you to validate him. He is there like as his like he is very like part of what makes Sungwoo so good to me is he wrestles with some of like that, like, you know, at first when
she's braless.
Or when she pretends that she doesn't remember their night together, and he's like, but I thought it was like such a thing or whatever. But he doesn't get he doesn't get gross about it, really.
No.
And he becomes what I would imagine, like, I mean, I just loved everything that he did with it. And then Suji, I just really loved that she played more of like an Ice Queen type character, which I think is an interesting mirror against, you know, where we see good. Like the female lead. However, I love that she was independent. I love that she was willing to challenge societal norms. And it reminded me a little bit, honestly, of Mi-sang, where she's just dealing with the bullshit all the time, and Mi-sang really kind of like deals with that, and especially one of the female characters in The Office who really has to like bear the brunt of this. And I just enjoyed that she was also trusted to handle business. Like Sungwoo wasn't like he was going to stand by her side, but he was like, "You've got this."
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. And I loved her. I thought she was fantastic. I thought she was beautiful.
Yeah, I have a crush on her.
At, like, the end where she like whips off the
I was
helmet.
say when he gets on the motorcycle and puts on the pink helmet behind her, like I loved it.
I did.
I have a crush on her, like so big time. I had a crush on her in Black Knight. Like
Me too.
I wanted her hair in Black Knight. Now I want her hair in Because This Is My First Life. Like she's just gorgeous.
She is. I love. I mean, I can't. I love them all. I did. I mean, that it's why the drama was so good for me. I sometimes I want a drama that's just like all in on one couple, just give it to me. But this drama, I guess I was in the mood for that, for like multiple couples who just had such interesting stories.
You know it's done right when you're watching a scene and you're not wishing it would get back to a different couple.
Yes.
Oh.
That's very true.
So now, with the time we have remaining, the biggest thing that has happened on the Patreon that I've seen, and just in general conversation, is the ending being very controversial. So I want to read...
I love the word controversial being used for this, like, fluffy ending.
I know.
Okay, but
that lasted like one episode.
Look, I want to go into this because we have one Patreon member who's talked about this repeatedly, and it's really impacted them. And I think it's actually like I have
some thoughts. So I'm
that's fair.
Okay, so for one of the Patreon members, I'm just going to basically read one of her comments because she's mentioned this drama a few times, and I know she's eager for it to be talked about, especially the ending. Okay. So, she says, my husband and I really identified with them being like the leads. He's introverted and probably on the autism spectrum and socially anxious. He said he felt like he was Se-hee. So we were really invested, and we'd rewatch scenes with the Vicky comments turned on and everything. And then that happened, and I felt so horrible and betrayed that I cried. I hissed at her whenever she showed up on screen after that. We call it the Voldemort show now because it is the show that must not be named.
Oh my God.
We don't get as emotionally invested into shows anymore without checking for spoilers about the ending and making sure that if there is an ending separation, it at least makes sense and is handled well. If it is currently airing, we wait for the end because we will decide before we decide if it's a good show or not for us. Breakup and separations at the end feel like fouling on purpose at the end of a basketball game you're losing to me. It doesn't make sense. I have never seen it work and result in victory. It makes the score worse, and it's evidence you failed. And this was the worst, most pointless ending separation I've ever seen over hundreds of dramas. I'm not done. I've got 2 more paragraphs. Our top favorite ones without separations. Well, except Goblin, but there it makes... Our top favorites are ones without separations. Well, except Goblin, but there it makes sense. But Strong Woman, Do Bong Soo, Mystic Pop-Up Bar, and from now on, Showtime are our other top 3 that don't have separations. Also, Inspector Ku is in the top list, but it didn't have a couple to separate. And so basically, at the end, they had one other edit that they threw on, which was, like I said, my husband said he felt like he was Se-hee. I have been very happily married to him for 21 years. I have never had to be extremely cruel to him to understand that he cares about me, so yeah. But then I am probably also on the autism spectrum. So maybe Ji-ho was on some neurotypical, or at least not vibing with the autism stuff when she thought abandoning him would be good for the relationship.
I totally understand that view of it. Absolutely. Because here is my thought on it. I don't love the separation things at the end of dramas if it doesn't have a point. And I feel like if she needed to go and find herself more, then all the power to her. And I thought that's what she was doing. I thought she was going on some big trip, just like Se-hee did.
To Mongolia?
I didn't think it was Mongolia, but yeah, I thought she was going to go on a trip and she said, I've never traveled on my own before. And I thought maybe she would do that. Mm-hmm. And she didn't. She just went to the sauna with Harang, and was staying, at a boarding house, which was weird. That was weird.
I was like, what are you doing?
That was weird to me. And then made him a cake and decided to go back. But I also do see it. Yes, I did think he was autistic coded when I first started watching it. That made sense to me. But I also then do see her as having her as in Ji-ho, not the patron. Ji-ho is having a very neurotypical view of him and not understanding, and just seeing it from her point of view. All she wanted was for him to express how he felt. And I don't know if that would have happened if she didn't leave. I'm not saying that I like that she left, but I'm glad he got pissed at her. Like, I'm glad he yelled at her, right? Like, he's like, you were just, like, around the corner? Like, what the hell? Like, So I don't know. I feel like where she went was stupid. Why she went, I think, made sense to her. But I also do see it as being possibly cruel.
Yeah, I felt like she didn't respect his room 19.
No.
And so I think that is the bummer. But then I'm like, and then she like crawls into bed. I mean, I do think it made sense that she broke the contract. I think that had to happen. But this part's weird. Here's what I think is funny though, because, and like not funny haha, but funny like, that's weird. Is that when I watched it, the ending didn't super bother me. And that's funny, weird, because the Coffee Prince one, I was pissed. Yes. And that was like way less bad than this
You're
was.
right.
And I think that tonight is the first time I really understood why. And I think it's because at that point I had pivoted to having so much more investment in, the couple I just talked about, that I was kind of like, look, it's not great, but I also was kind of in a place of like, I was just kind of watching for fun. Sorry, I did my snap bracelet. I'm going to put it away. But I think it was that I was like very invested in that second couple that I'd kind of like let go of. It just kind of felt like it was like a drama as opposed, but I can see, especially if you're feeling like you really identify with it and you're like, this feels like I would find this so personally cruel. That made me be like, yeah, okay, that's a very legitimate take.
Because I also think, like, going back to the room 19 thing, and her, she said all she wanted was for him to express how he felt, but she never told him that.
Yeah.
She could have told him that, and things could have gone differently. But again, I wasn't mad, because I did like everything else.
Right. And writers fuck up.
Yeah.
That's also, I guess I think I have some times where it's like, it felt to me like I gave a pass and that I was like, you're juggling many plot lines. You weren't sure what to do. You kind of screwed the pooch. And I think I was more mad maybe in Coffee Prince because I was so invested in that through line at the end so much that at the end I was just like, what the fuck? Whereas this one I was less. But listening to the feedback made me be like, yeah, that isn't fair.
No, I do. I appreciate that patron for writing that because it has me seeing it in a whole new light. I still love the drama, but I totally respect that point of view and understand it better now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I respect that perspective too. I mean, I think part of the issue with me is that, or why it didn't affect me that way, is I'm just so used to like a breakup at the end, either in romance books or K-dramas love to do it. And I guess, honestly, I think I looked at how much time was left on that drama and I was like, they're going to have a separation. They're going to find a way to do it. And they did it.
Yes.
And I was like, okay. So I think it was part of that I was looking at it, I wasn't as emotionally invested in them at that stage because I was like, okay, I felt like they were at the point where they'd get through it, and I was so hooked on Ho Rong and Won Suk at that point that and actually the other couple too, that again it wasn't like I was so focused on only this one relationship to carry like the entire plot, because it was just a little bit more of like a rounded cast, and I think that's why it didn't affect me like that. And
we didn't see ourselves as much. I mean, that's the thing. Is that I think if you're seeing yourself there and you're really projecting in, like, I really identify with this. And so then you're going to see these, like, reactions and be like, oh my gosh, I would feel, like, so devastated if this happened to me. And so I wasn't seeing myself as Se-hee really.
Yeah, same.
And I also think, like, she might have made a mistake too, and he kind of told her that. Like, Like, you can't do
Put the
this in
bracelet
future
down.
'cause this is
Put
not-
it down.
I mean, obviously, like, as someone who I married, there are times where, like, our communications are just on totally different planes. And to get them on the same plane is a lot of work. Mm-hmm. And I guarantee I have made mistakes, like Ji-ho did. And, I mean, not like that. I didn't leave and go to a sauna with my friends, but I'm just saying, like, I think that also, you know, she learned a little bit.
I think
about
she's
it.
learning.
Like,
I was going to say, I think she's
you know?
learning because, like, the fact that they still do the contract because that's what makes him comfortable. They still do the contract and they revisit it like all the time. I think that she learned from that. And so I want to see it as that she realizes she did wrong by him and that she's getting better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's how I look at it. But again, if I was super emotionally invested in that couple and really saw, like if I saw myself in Se-hee and someone liked it, I can totally see how I'd be like, all right, I hate this drama now.
It's
like,
a betrayal.
totally get it. That's, yeah, it would feel like a betrayal. And I see that, and I think that is obviously valid. These are, I guess, the reasons why the three of us didn't
yeah,
feel
and I mean, I identify as neurodivergent, but I'm not autistic. And so I think, again, like, if you're having that lived experience, I really see how that can hit you in some kind of way.
Absolutely.
Yeah. But thank you for sharing, and
that's why I love our Patreon. I love that we get...
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we will talk more. You know, maybe we should have a whole episode on dramas, on romances that don't have a separation. There's no third act breakup. We would have like 2.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to think of one right now. I mean, there are some.
I know.
I think the one
business proposal. I hated that.
I think one of the ones that I think is the best is the very first one, which is Crash Landing on You. Like, there was a very good reason for that separation.
And it wasn't a separation though. Where
no. It was just literal,
that's
like, governmental separation.
Yeah. It's a governmental
geopolitical buzzkill.
Okay,
well, really quickly, let's wrap this up. But let's just everybody say a drama that they're watching because we haven't done that for a while. And
Can I really quickly just say we never mentioned Kim Min Kyu in this, and I would just like to give a shout out to Bak Nam.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay.
Bak Nam with he likes to wear pink and he has
and he's not a stalker. He's not a stalker
yeah,
killer.
I am so glad he was
because he was adorable.
I was gonna be really upset. Like honestly, I was gonna message Sarah and be like, you need to tell me if Kim Min Kyu is gonna be like a killer in a drama. Yeah. Like, you should have prepped me. I should have trusted her.
So let's just, like, he didn't get a shout out. I wish there was more Bak Nam in this drama, and that's all.
He was so cute.
He was adorable. He's adorable. He's in the military now, too.
Oh.
Gotta wait.
He'll come out buff.
Okay,
so what are you watching?
I just started My Lovely Liar, episode 1. I'm going to go watch episode 2 after this. Love it.
I am also watching My Lovely Liar. I absolutely freaking love it. I have to catch up 2 more episodes. And I do just want to say real quickly that I watched Mask Girl. Mm-hmm. I did talk a bit about it on our Instagram and in our Patreon, but I just want everyone to know, if you haven't started it yet, I just feel like I'm doing like a public duty. It is very violent. And we're talking like sexual violence. And I feel like that was not something I was prepared for. It's an absolute wild ride. I think in the end, it was like with Little Women. In the end, I was really only rooting for like the innocent children to like survive. Everyone else, I was like, you're all messed up. I mean, it was absolutely insane. And it took... Our beloved older brother from Reply 1988. Oh, they made him like. I'm like upset I saw him that way.
No.
They made him horrible. So anyway, I just brace yourselves. I think it's very triggering. It is not for everyone. Someone on Patreon when I explained a little bit more about it, they go, okay, I don't think that's for me. And I was like, I watched the whole thing and I don't think it's for me either. So, okay, that's
definitely
all. I just feel like I need to give a preface.
Well, now I'm curious.
Yeah, because I binged it like crazy. I could not put it down. But it is wild. Okay. Absolutely wild.
I do also quickly want to point out that neither Leah nor Megan realize that the lead in My Lovely Liar is Kim Sun from Goblin. So, Kim Shin's sister.
Okay. Yeah, Kim Shin's sister. I did not know.
I didn't.
And she is fantastic. My Lovely Liar is honestly freaking fantastic. So, what are you watching, Leah?
I'm watching My Lovely Liar. I started it before either
yeah,
of
you did.
Right.
Because I'm still not watching it because it's my
See you in my 19th
life. And look, shout out again anywhere I can put it, although I am devastated that I'm watching Personal Weatherman. It's a JBL. I watched the first 2 episodes. It's freaking wild. And then it was like, no more episodes for 2 weeks because there's some like sports ball thing messing it up. But Sex Contract... 2 words. Also,
intrigued.
The Dom, I guess you could say, is the weatherman. So the artist who's at home being essentially fed and cared for to participate in the sex contract watches him giving the weather, and how the weather will show what kind of night he's going to be having.
Stop it.
Did I just sell you on it?
Yeah, where is
it's
this?
on Viki.
And
they're only like 28 minutes.
Sign me up.
I mean, I was like, is this a Allison RBL Whisper? I think I plugged it last week too. I'm just very taken by the whole thing, even though it's like, I watched 47 minutes of it. I'm like,
right.
Sex Contract with a weatherman? I did not know I needed this in my life. Yeah. I've only watched 2 episodes. I do like My Lovely Liar.
I love it. Yeah, My Lovely Liars. I'm really, when we were in London, Sarah was like, look, my main goal is to convince you to watch My Lovely Liar. And I was like, I mean, sold. Like, you don't have to work very hard. And so I messaged her once I got home and could finally watch it. And I was like, you were right. This is freaking good. So,
all right. Well, on this note, welcome back from your travels abroad.
Thank everybody for listening, Leah.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone. We are here, and I will not be clicking off until you've had a chance to also say goodbye.
All right, everyone. We will see you next time. Annyeong.
Annyeong.
Kamsahamnida. Thank you for listening to Afternoona Delight. Where can you find us outside the pod? Head on over to afternoonadelight.com. That's AFTERNOONADELIGHT.com. You'll find links to all our social media, our book recs, K-pop and K-skincare recs, and if you want even more Afternoona Delight, because really who doesn't, you can join our Patreon, where you can choose the patron level that's right for you. Join in daily K-drama conversations, listen to bonus podcast episodes just for patrons, and participate in our monthly live K-drama support group via Zoom. We can't wait for you to be a part of the community. Until next time, annyeong!